And so we are now going to move off to our main course, and that is to equip every school with a fully functioning governing body. That is our aim, and that is our dream. And so we have Mr. George Muruasu here and Constanza van der Walt. So if you just want to allow me briefly to pay due respect to our esteemed, caring citizens who have offered their time to be in community with all of us. So firstly, George Morwasu completed his BProc at the University of Transkei, which is now called the Walter Sisulu University. George has been in the legal fraternity until he sold his practice in 2005. He got admitted as an attorney in 1997 and soon went into private practice and synchronously lectured at the Vaal University of Technology between 2002 and 2004. His experience covers a full spectrum of advisory and litigation services for municipalities, national and provincial departments, regulators, and major government business enterprises on all aspects of public law. He also dealt with the treasury regulations and directives as well as corporate governance. He now considers himself as an education law practitioner. He has previously held a junior management position at the Department of Labour and later at the Engineering Council of South Africa. He previously held office as a manager responsible for legal affairs and ethics or discipline at the South African Council of Educators, and which office which he held for a period of 16 years until 30th of April 2023, most recent. He currently holds office as the National Development Officer for the Federation of Governing Bodies of South Africa, known as FETSAS. He aims to assist school governing bodies, school principals, and SMTs alike by providing the much needed training and support in all aspects provided by FETSAS in their home language. So we're going to hand over to Brother George as he is going to serve his main dish, and with the aim that we will be able to get a better idea of how governing body functions and what are the pitfalls. And of course, there will be time for you to pose questions later as well. Also, as a co-host, co-pilot this afternoon, we have Constanza van der Walt. She was born and bred on the Highveld of Mpumalanga. She matriculated in 1983 at the Huguenot High School in Bethel, studied BA at Northwest University and achieved honors degree in English. Working experience, currently working at FETSA since 2008, started to work as the provincial manager in Mpumalanga, then a short time as deputy manager in Gauteng, and started in 2021 as the national operations manager. She's responsible for liaising with provincial education departments and the DBE, management of provincial managers, mediator when necessary, and all sorts of other tasks such as training, assistance with interview processes, etc. Previous work in 1988, she was a radio journalist in Namibia at the public broadcaster. From 1989 to 1995, she was public relations officer for Bethel Town Council. 1995 to 2008, she was the communication official for the Mpumalanga Attorney Council. She holds a BA and honors degree at Northwest University, achieved in 1988 and 1992. She's an accredited public relations officer in 1994, a leadership and community editor, student newspaper, served on the hostel committee, served on leadership structures in church, served on various SGBs as chairperson until 2023. She is married and she has 5 beautiful children. And so we have 2 esteemed guests, knowledgeable with the law, policies, and the functioning of governing bodies to guide us as we embark on this process. So over to you, Mr. George.
Thank you so much, Ridwan. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here today and to be speaking to the colleagues in the room. Some of the colleagues may know me, having interacted with me whilst I was with the South African Council for Educators for the longest of time until I left them. We do not have a lot of time today. We only have about 45 minutes. So I just want to set my time so that I do not overscreen my provided time. Thank you. Ridwan, the topic for today is preparing for the 2024 election, SGB elections, and what to look out for, things to consider when electing SGB members. We'll be looking at the technical aspects of the elections. We'll be looking at the functions of the SGB. And at the end, we'll talk briefly to the colleagues about some fundraising initiatives that we think they may also look into as a school. It's extremely difficult to preach to the converted, but we need to be, before we even ask the question, what do we look for or what should we look for when electing an SGB? Let's start by those who are like me and are not yet converted. Let's understand this school governing body. What are we talking about when we talk of a school governing body? If I say I want to be a school governing body member, or what am I getting myself into? It is indeed a section 20 of the Schools Act describes what a school governing body is. It says it's a body of parents, educators, non-educators, and learners. And with learners, it's in an instance where a school is a high school or a secondary school, and these learners and parents, the learners are elected by learners themselves. Parents represent the school community. And two, what we need to always keep in mind as school governing body members, when I stand up and say I want to be elected, I need to know that I am going to stand in position of trust towards my school. And I need to always act in the best interest of the school. So I am not loyal to my pocket, but I have to be loyal to the school and the learners alike. Meaning I need to also, whilst there as a member, create a conducive environment for quality education. I need to worry about the learners in my school, and say to myself that I need to ensure that quality education is being dished out of this school. Therefore, I need to support the management of the school to achieve their objectives. I need to also know, Ridwan, that I am not and will not be remunerated. This is what Section 27 of the South African Schools Act says. It says that I will not be remunerated in any way when I serve as the SGB. Of course, I can claim for my necessary expenses that I incurred as and when I execute my functions as an SGB member. So when I go there, I need to prepare my mind to say that I will be volunteering my services, but in the best interest of my school. Now, this SGB, how does the SGB look like? When we say we are the SGB, what are we talking about? Who are we talking about? And this is set out in Section 20 of the South African Schools Act. It must be remembered that the minute we are called the SGB and we are elected, we become a statutory elected body. A statutory elected body means that we can be sued, we can sue. We become the arms, the ears, the legs of a school. We enable the school to function. We enable the school to be able to, if buy on credit, to enter into contracts and so forth. And who are we? One, we are the elected parent representatives. So the SGB comprises of the elected parents components, or what we call, yes, we usually talk about a parent component. we usually talk about a teacher component, non-teaching staff component, co-opted members. We've got the principal by virtue of his or her office. And then in a high school, we've got learners, what we call a learner component. But these are words that we should not be using, Ridwan. Once we are elected, once we are there, we are not pockets. We are one, we are the SGB. Whatever decision that's been taken there is the SGB's decision. Even if I don't like it, I shouldn't put myself in a pocket and call myself a particular component. We are the SGB, and that is our decision. And then we've got we've got schools for pupils or student learners with special needs, or what we call LSEN schools. They've got a slightly different composition than your normal school by virtue of their speciality. And the SGB of an LSEN school comprises of the parents of learners who are enrolled at that particular school, if it is reasonably possible. We've got educators at that particular school. We've got non-educator staff members at that particular school. We've got learners in a high school setting, so that's from grade 8 and above, if it is reasonably practicable. And then we've got a representative for sponsoring bodies, if applicable. So in some instances, some will say, we are sponsoring your school, and we can get them to serve on the governing body of that particular school. Representatives of organizations of parents of learners. We can bring ourselves together, call ourselves an association of learners. If applicable, we can serve on the governing body of that particular school. Representatives of organizations of people with disabilities, if it is applicable, people with disabilities, experts in relevant fields of special needs education, and the principal by virtue of their office. So you can see that this is an extended SGB by virtue of the speciality in this regard. So this is how it is composed. It is a known that from the 1st of March to the 31st of March, the minister has already declared that this is an election period. So we will be electing our school governing bodies. This is the government notice that has been publicized. But then, as and when we elect these our office bearers, we know that in every organization, we usually find the controllers, we find conformists, we find critics, we find cheerleaders. But is this what we indeed want? We always say, Ridwan, that instead of controllers, when we are looking for our governing bodies, those who will be taking care of us for the next 3 years, of our schools for the next 3 years, we should look or try to find change agents. I've already mentioned what your role will be and why you say, I want to serve. So as and when you say, I want to serve, you should be prepared to, one, not be a controller, but at least a change agent in your school. Not a conformist, but let's talk about a consensus builder. We have to make it work together. I shouldn't be that critic, but I need to challenge what I can challenge harmoniously in the best interest of the school, because some of us, we just criticize, but we do not bring anything on board. For as long as I can say something against you, Mem Machutla. We've got cheerleaders. We don't need that. We need counselors. At the end of the day, we need to all work in the best, as one, in the best interest of this school and not divide our school. Now that we are going into our elections, we ask the question, in order for it to be successful, if it is successful, what does a successful SGB look like? Constanza, would you like to tell us what a successful SGB looks like?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, George, and hi to everyone in the room. Yeah, it's important to understand you have to negotiate your reality in your specific school. Very important what George has alluded to is the teamwork, that we have to work as one and put forward the interest of your school and of your learners. For you to be successful as a SGB or to function successfully, we will later on look at the functions, is really to understand one another, to understand that we are there for only one goal, that would be the best interest of the school, and that we cannot come forward with any hidden agendas. You are not there to make your mark as an individual. You are there to support and contribute to the vision of your school and of that successful school environment that you have to create. So it's very important when we go into this election to understand that we have to once again negotiate and anticipate these challenges that we see forward for this coming election, and make sure that when you look at who the candidates who would be able to stand and be nominated for this election, that they are really the people, the persons that can take your school forward, to work as team players to make that SGB a successful body. Thank you, George.
Thank you so much. And just to put you again on the spot, Constanza, we've come across some challenges in the preparation to the upcoming elections. Would you like to share those with the colleagues too?
Yes, thank you. You see it on the screen there, and we all know that as we are preparing for our elections, that we are also busy with negotiating and mitigating the whole issue on the Bella Bill. As we are speaking, the Gauteng dates for the public meetings was announced, and it's important that all of our SGBs and our school leaders, that they also participate in that very important opportunity to make your voice count with your opinion on the Bella Bill. We have a lot of challenges in the Bella Bill, and it's important that we understand that for SGBs, that could create a lot of issues if it goes through. But I really do respect everybody's opinion on that. So we needn't go into that today. That's not our topic, but be mindful of your school's participation in these specific public hearings. Then, of course, one of the biggest challenges for most of our provinces, and we will see later on, we've made a list of those, is the delayed release of regulations. Not all of our provinces were able to publish new regulations. Later on, we will touch briefly on that, but it's important to understand when we don't have new regulations for 2024, the last published regulations will count for this election. So when you, as a school environment, prepare for your election, you have to go back to the last published or the most recent published regulations to see which way you have to go forward with your elections. So make sure about that. We will later on have a list of the latest information on that. And if I'm correct, it's 5 provinces have already published regulations, but not all of them managed to do that. And then, of course, with the absence of the regulations, although we have national guidelines, unfortunately, we will see inadequate or incorrectly trained officials. And that's why you as SGB and your school community must know your regulations. And if you don't have, or you feel unsure about your interpretation of certain stipulations in the regulations, make sure and go and ask someone who will be able to assist you. There would be in our provinces, at the district office or the specific head offices of the provinces, be able and knowledgeable officials to ask specific questions. You can also ask your SGB associations for some answers and questions, and make sure when you go into that election, while you're this electoral officer or part of the electoral team at your school, you have to understand what is possible and what is not possible. So don't go into that process unsure. Make sure that you know the regulations. If they were not published, go to the previous set of regulations, go and have a look at the national guidelines that will put you in a position to negotiate and to manage all the issues that come forward through the whole process. Then, of course, we all know, as the president has now announced the date of election for as the 29th of May. It's only a month or two after the SGB elections. Everybody's focus is now on the general elections. And that also put the SGB elections in a bit of a dither, because it's not having the focus on it as it should be. It's very difficult when you have two very important elections in 1 year to really see them through as it should be. But nevertheless, some people would see the year of general elections, also the SGB elections, as a stepping stone in their political career. We all know that in some of our provinces, there wouldn't be enough advocacy and manage, marketing of the SGB election, although we see some effort from the DBE as of the moment. We see the marketing stuff going onto social media. So you have to look at your own school environment, make use of social media, the ways you communicate with your parents to market your election, because you want good people to serve on your SGB. You as a school community will get the SGB you deserve. So you have to think about, how will I go about at my school market this election, to ask our parents, come forward, come vote and make yourselves available to serve on the SGB, because we do it for our children, because we love them. We would like to see them prosper. We would like to see them being educated. We like to see them in future making a contribution to the country. So that's so important, to create that conducive environment with the right people managing or governing your school. Because when you succeed to get elected on the SGB, you become a governor of your school. And you take responsibility of what is happening in your school, within your school environment. That's very important. And of course, you will know, and you would know, that schools are they're magnets for media attention. When something goes wrong at a school, it's like hawks coming down onto your school, putting you in the spotlight. They don't even ever see all the things that you've done right. They only see the things that you've done wrong. So make sure that when you elect people, that they are able to take up that responsibility, to govern correctly, to comply with all the laws, education laws, and to make sure that they create that wonderful experience for our school learners at that specific school. Of course, one of the issues of SGB elections is the poor voter participation. And the way we could really mitigate that or manage that is by doing an electronic election. There's a lot of people that can assist you with that. And in that sense, we all have smartphones. I don't know of anyone that doesn't have a phone that can do anything and everything, because everybody is on the phone all the time. So when you use that instrument, you will most definitely get your quorum. In most of our provinces, if not all, we have to have that 15% quorum of our parents participating. And the only way you can ensure that is to go for an electronic election. And I think in most of our provinces, in the regulations, published or not, it does allow for electronic voting. We will see on the information that we share a little bit later on. I think it's only Gauteng, and there you have to, thank you, George, there you have to write a letter to the department 30 days before your election started to get, permission for the specific mode that you would like. So they are one of the culprits that is not publishing new election regulations, unfortunately, but they do take letters in from schools that ask permission to go for an e-election, but they must give you that permission specifically. George, if you can just go slightly back to the previous slide. I'm just finishing now. No, that one, the one that we were busy with on the, that one. Yeah. And I think we've spoken a lot now about the identifying of suitable candidates, and also in this sense, making sure of a little bit of continuity on your SGB. You can't have, say, for instance, 7 or 9 totally new members on your SGB. Oh, you would really suffer for the next year and a half, if not the whole 3 years of your term, for those people to get adjusted to what can be expected from SGB members. So please make sure that when you elect, when you nominate, that you have people that already served on the SGB to give some guidance and leadership to your new SGB members. Thank you, George.
Thank you. Just to add on to what you said, Constanza, you said you get the SGB that you deserve by voting or not voting. So we need to keep that in mind, because when I don't vote, I should be thankful for what I get. If I vote, at least that was my choice, my decision. So please encourage parents to come forward and to take up this challenge in the best interest of the school. Constanza has already spoken about the election regulations that have been publicized. As you will note, some have been published late. We are in it already, and it is what it is, unfortunately, but at least they have been publicized. And in the absence of anything, we revert back to the last election regulations. And Constanza, would you like to, before I jump in, speak about the election modes? I think you touched a bit on this.
On the election modes now.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
It's important to understand that you can choose what kind of election mode you would like to follow. But as I briefly alluded to, it's important for you to reach a quorum. Now, some of our schools could have the approach that they don't want so many parents to come and vote. I think you must change your attitude, because if you get a lot of parents supporting the SGB process of the election process and so on, come and vote and make themselves available, you are credible. Your school community become credible. The more parents that take part and get involved in your school, the more credible your school is, isn't it? So I think it would be really something that a goal that all our schools would want, is to see that you get at least that 15% quorum. And the way to ensure that, as I've said, is to make use of this e-election mode, because then you will ensure people just have to push a button on their phones to vote. How easy can it be? But if you have circumstances and then there's not connectivity or not data enough with your parent community, then of course you have to go to a full day election and see a full day election, or the normal kind of election where you have a process, a nomination and election meeting at once. The one precedes the other one, and then you do it the normal way as what we have done before COVID. So this is the 3 modes that you can go on to. And then you have, as I say, you have to understand your quorum requirement. You have to understand that the meeting time could be a problem. If you go to a nomination election meeting or a full day, you have to choose your day very perfectly for your community. Sometimes parents cannot come forward because they have little children that must stay at home. In the cities, the traffic circumstances could have a bearing on your election and the people being on time or not on time for that meeting. And at schools where you have hostels, it would be maybe a good idea to have your meeting on a Friday or a Monday, when people and parents come forward to the school to bring their children to and fro to the school at that specific day. So if you choose your day, if you don't do an e-election or a full day election, or you go for the normal one, pick your time and pick the day specifically to serve your parent community. Thank you.
Constance, would you like to deal with the applications and approvals maybe?
Well, as we said, George, and it's very important now because we're already now at the 22nd of February. So if you were to have permission from your provincial department for a specific mode of election, you should have already sent in your letters to the department. And as you know, because a month from then now, the schools will be closed. So yeah, I hope all of our schools have been, eager to work within this specific application time. And also the notice periods to your parents. If you have an early election like the 5th of March, you would have already sent out information to your parents. At this point in time, all of our schools are busy with the voters roll to make sure that it is correctly done. And people, when you talk about the voters roll, it could be a strange word to use because that's now for a proper election. But this one is a proper election. And so we call, this is the third biggest election in South Africa. So the voters roll is actually your list of parents of registered learners in your school. That could make it a little bit easier, but we call it a voters roll for the sake of the election. So, and remember now, the definition of a parent in the Schools Act is clear, but a child can only have two parents. So you cannot bring along all of the guardians and people that may be responsible for your child for some aspect of the school life. There's only two parents that can be on that specific voters roll for the sake of the election. So don't come and make it difficult for the school. If you have a lot of people involved in your child's life, choose who will be the two to go and elect or to go and vote. Okay. So don't make it difficult for the school. Don't go there and fight on who's who now in the life of the child. Make up your minds before you go there. And then very important, grade R pupils or learners, their parents, they're eligible to vote. Especially when the school, the grade R is part of your school. When it's a private grade R, of course not, then you don't even have elections. But when you're in a public school and your grade R is part of that public school, you may vote. It is permissible. And of course, foreigners can also vote because they're part of the school community. So that's why you have to read through your regulations. Make sure that you understand the regulations. Then you will be able to manage the process of the election. Then, of course, make also sure that you have adequate nominations. Some of the schools, they believe that they only have enough nominations for the vacant position. Say your school can elect 9 parents, and you have only 9 nominations, then there's no election needed. But then you can just think for yourself, you are limiting your parents to make their choice. No, you are limiting them to say, we will only take these parents. It's like forcing their hand. So it's up to parents in the school to make sure that there's adequate nominations for you to make the best choice. Choose the best possible candidate to serve on the SGB. Okay, and then there must be time before the election. Some sort of, even in an e-election, there must be some way to introduce these candidates to see who they are, where they come from, for what they stand, just yeah, thank you. And that's very important to understand because you can't vote for anyone, any paluka or anyone. You have to vote for good people, people who will really serve the SGB and serve the school. They must have some time on their hands. They must have a good approach towards the school. They must be positive citizens of South Africa. And you will you can look in the regulations for all the other specific ways that you have to be to be possible to vote for. You can't be mentally ill. You can't be unrehabilitated. You can't have a convicted and offense and sentenced to imprisonment. That kind of stuff is important. You can't have any charges against you of any sexual demeanor, because that will exclude you then for working with children. It's important to understand, people, we can't go and vote for people that is not law-abiding citizens. We like our SGB to be upstanding citizens of our community. Isn't that so? Because we know they will have an ethical approach and we can trust them to take decisions in the best interest of the school. George, just a little bit back again, if I may ask you. You are going too quickly for me. Yes, a very important one, just to go forward, is that proxy votes are not allowed. So you can't send someone on your behalf. If you cannot make your election, you won't be able to vote. That's what the proxy vote means. And then if there's any dispute necessary during the process, there's ways and means to do that. It's also in the regulations. They make ample way for you to forward a dispute and to have that cleared up. Thank you.
Thank you, Constanze. You've spoken about the issue of suitability. Indeed, we should make sure that whomever that stands as a candidate should not have been declared unfit to work with children, be it in terms of the Children's Act, or that his name does not appear on the National Register for Sexual Offenders. We need to check those things. We need to also look at the protection of personal information. There's certain information that we cannot put out there. The parents' IDs, the children's IDs, and so forth. And we should have procedures, I will talk to this, to deal with issues of by-elections, co-options, and so forth. Now, okay, I'm chasing after time. Now let's look at the functions of the school governing body. I put up my hand and said, I want to govern and I've been elected. I am here to govern. What are my functions as a school governing body member? One, I have the responsibility to, or it's one of my functions to see to it that I adopt the constitution of the SGB. And the constitution serves as a guiding document for SGB operations. Two, I have the responsibility, it is my function to make sure that I develop and adopt policies. We are not there to frustrate any process. We have the responsibility to see to it that there are policies in place, they are developed, they are adopted. If they are already existing, in existence, we need to revisit them, review them, and make sure that they are indeed fit for the purpose for which they have been developed. So this is our responsibility as the SGB. And the policies in question, among others, they include the code of conduct for our learners. It's the responsibility of the function. There must be a code of conduct in school. So the SGB has to develop that in consultation with all other stakeholders and learners and parents, teachers alike. The language policy, if we want to look into the language policy of our school, it is the function of the SGB and any other matters that will contribute to the effective functioning of our school. We have the responsibility to manage the finances. I've already said we are not there to mind or worry much about our pockets. We have the responsibility to see to it that finances are managed and they are managed well and in the best interest of the school. So we have the responsibility, we must approve the budget. There must be a budget. We have to scrutinize it, satisfy ourselves, and approve the budget when we are satisfied and ensure that financial resources are used effectively to support the educational objectives. So we need to have arrangements in place to manage and execute the budget in question. We need to participate in, or we have to participate in the appointment of educators, which means that the SGB has a say in the appointment of educators in a school. So while it is the ultimate authority of the head of department, it must be known that the HOD of a particular province will appoint, but the SGB will be involved in the interview process, and it will make recommendations to the to the HOD, who will at the end of the day make the appointment based on the recommendations. The SGB has to consult with the school community. We need to speak to our schooling community. We need to get inputs as the SGB from the schooling community regarding the school's admission policy, the code of conduct, as I said, the language policy, and in brief, we need to involve the community in as far as these matters are concerned. In fee-paying schools, it is the responsibility of the SGB to determine the admission at the school, what the school fees will be in accordance with the laws and regulations of a particular province. And we need to work in collaboration with our educators. We are partners in this. We need to make the environment conducive for our educators, make it viable and user-friendly for our educators, meaning we need to be partners with one goal in mind, advancing the best interest of the school. Now the question, who are we looking for in here? That was the question that was asked in the beginning. It's important to ensure that the person that we are to elect has to be committed to education. They need to demonstrate a strong commitment to the education and should prioritize the best interest of the learner and the schooling community. They need to be or to embrace diversity and inclusivity in this regard, which means that a good SGB should reflect the diversity of the school community and look for candidates who can represent the various perspectives, including the parents' view, the learner's view, and fostering inclusivity at all times. We're looking for leadership skills. We may not have good leaders in here, but there is a way to get those. So we need someone who can at least depict or show good leadership skills, someone who will understand or understands educational issues, someone who has got good communication skills. These are the type of people that we look for. Someone who's got problem-solving skills. We've got CVs, you'll get CVs of parents. These are the qualities that we look for. Someone who will be transparent. Someone who will have knowledge in governance procedures, who works as a team player and can collaborate and is available. So the person should be able to avail themselves at all times to serve the community. But mostly, the person must be ethical in whatever it is that they are doing. So we need to look for candidates who demonstrate integrity, honesty, and commitment to ethical conduct, and not someone who's loyal, as I said, to their pockets. In the event that we are unable to get the right candidates those who have availed themselves, Section 21 of the South African Schools Act makes provision for co-option of additional members. So co-option allows the SGB to invite individual with specific skills. We need an accountant, we need someone with legal knowledge and so forth to participate in its work. And if the SGB identifies a need of a particular skill that they do not have, the SGB can co-opt additional members to help in this regard. Do not be afraid. But let's make this clear. Section 21 of the Schools Act says that co-opted members do not have voting powers. However, members may be co-opted for a period of 90 days with voting powers only if they are filling a vacant elected parent position. Then, for a period of 90 days, they can have those voting powers. So if it is not a vacant elected parent position, the member can contribute to discussions but cannot participate when it is time for voting. And then the procedure, I'm looking at the time, the procedure for co-opting members. This involves, it's a formal process, it's a formal decision that must be taken by the existing SGB members. So the SGB should identify individuals with the skills, these necessary skills that the SGB thinks that it needs, and invite them to serve. And this should be done in a transparent manner. And it must be an inclusive process. Therefore, the SGB's constitution should address this aspect. So we will look at your constitution to say, does it make provision for co-option? Does it make provision for who we can look out for? So that's the eligibility criteria, the duration of the co-option, and any voting rights that are being granted to co-opted members. So when you are to serve, look at your constitution. Does it address these issues? Does it specify the number of co-opted members allowed? Therefore, always make sure that the process is in line with your provincial regulations, because they differ from province to province. I've talked of transparency. Read one in whatever it is that we do, for us to be trusted and not be found wanting by the community and other members. We should always be transparent, and we should communicate with the school community. This is very essential. As I said, the reason for co-option will be we're looking for certain skills so that we're not being accused of looking or trying to find our friends to serve. So it's important that the SGB should obtain approval of the school community. So we will inform our community, our stakeholders, to say that we need this particular skill. Can we go ahead? Our constitution allows for that. Therefore, we need to, at all times, execute whatever it is what we do in accordance with good practice, and keep the community informed and seek their understanding. And in whatever it is what we do, please document your decisions. Minute them, file them well for transparency purposes. So we will be giving trainings as soon as SGB elections are finalized as the SGB. So please keep an eye on upcoming dates on the FETSA's website. We'll be talking, it's a number of topics. We didn't list them all. The basic introduction to governance and management. So this will be given during the induction. We will have school-specific inductions. There will be a development plan for the year. So please keep an eye on the FETSA's website. And then in brief, I said I will talk briefly about a fundraising initiative. It is indeed so, Ridwan, that our schools are battling with funds. It's a fact. And therefore, it is extremely important that it is the function of the SGB to augment the funds of the school. And therefore, there is this initiative in collaboration with FETSAS, which FETSAS came up with, and it's called SIM for Schools, which simply means SIM cards for schools. You can scan the QR code there if you can from wherever you are. It will tell you a bit about this initiative, but let me talk. It's being brought by FETSAS. Let me talk a bit about it. As I said, it's a school fundraising opportunity by FETSAS, and it's operated by Max app. It operates on the same principle as the My School principle, save that this is a SIM card which gives you the best rates. At the moment, we've got so many gadgets in our homes which we feed, be it airtime and data. And with certainty, I can say to anyone seated in here that the cheapest rates that you will get are with this SIM for school. At the moment, when you just quickly take a glance, this is public information, so we are not campaigning for one above the other. You will know that you are paying so much. Let's look at Vodacom, MTN, Cell C. It's 85 Rand for 1 gig of data, or 139 with Cell C for 1.5 gigs of data. But with this Max app, it's 49 Rand. And then you can look at the other figures. You will know that the Max app remains the cheapest. But what happens, I'm flying through this owing to time. As a school, if you go on to this initiative, if you buy this SIM card to be sold and distributed to your schooling community, one, I've already said, this is the cheapest form of, be it airtime or data. And two, the data does not expire. But with the rest, you are worried. On the 30th, the night, you don't sleep because you must finish the data. With the Max app, you don't have to worry about it. It doesn't expire. But how does it benefit a school? The school, if distributed, a school gets for each SIM card that the school sells, as long as that SIM card is activated, it is active and it is loaded with data, irrespective of the amount. The school gets 5% of the revenue, whatever it is that's loaded. If I load 100 Rand for the duration of the life of that SIM card, which SIM card gets locked to a school, is assigned to a school. Therefore, the 5% comes to the school, irrespective of where the SIM may be. I may load it in Cape Town and move to Mankweng. My school in Cape Town will continue to get this 5% for the duration of the life of that SIM card. I've already said the airtime, the data does not expire, unlike others. So you can use it for as long as you can use it. You're not worried about the 31st or the 29th of February. It will not expire. But the beauty of it, as I said, the school can see the number of SIM cards that are sold. Are they alive? If they are alive, the revenue that is being generated, the school will receive an invoice for what has been loaded, what the 5% due to it for as long as the SIM card is alive. And this become some form of additional funds to the school. I had to fly over this as I owing to time, so you can view your live account balances. You can top up this, be it on your banking app through a voucher, the blue voucher, and so forth. So the school can benefit out of this. For anyone that wishes for FETSAS to explain more, please feel free to make contact with us and we will take you through the process. This is the easiest way for your school to at least earn an additional income. Before any questions, Constanza, would you like to make additions before I hand back over to Ridwan?
No, thank you. Not on this Sim for Schools. I think it's a fundraising possibility for all our SGBs. We all know that they all need money for their schools, but I don't have anything to add as of now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, I hand back Ridwan. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Ridwan, I saw in the chat box, also in the question and answer box, one of the questions were, if those people that we appoint are appointed at schools in the meantime with a presidential program, if they could stand for the SGB. Now, technically, there's nothing that prohibits it, but one must really go and think if that person would be able to make the correct kind of contribution. But if that person is the right person for the non-educators component, technically, there's nothing that prohibits that. So that's a technical question. And another one was, what if a parent's name is not on the voter's roll? Now, that is a very difficult thing to handle while at the election. But because now they could have slipped in a mistake. So schools must be prepared to have their computers ready. You can't just work with papers that night. You have to have your registration system, of the school, your administration system. You have to have access to that to ensure that when a parent comes forward to come and vote, and maybe he or she is not on the voters roll, to have it double checked. Because we want our parents' participation. And there's nothing so bad as when someone comes forward to partake and then saying, oh, you're not allowed. Don't go that route. Try to accommodate. If you really have a problem and you can't find that name, even on the school's administration system, then we'll have to refer it to the electoral officer in charge at that night. But try to accommodate our parents. We know our parents at our schools, so don't be, kind of alienating them. We really need to be accommodating, but it must be correct procedure. Thank you. I'm not sure whether I've seen other questions.
Constanza, there's just one question. What is the role of the educator component on the SGB, and should they report back to the staff on SGB meetings?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Important here to understand is, like George has explained to us, when you're elected on the SGB, you become one. We are one. Simunye, I think that's the term there. It's very important to understand you don't bat for a specific team on the SGB. You bat for the school. You only work as a team for the best interest of the school. But there's nothing wrong for the educator component to go back into the staff room and tell them, the rest of the educators, what happened at the SG meetings, what issues were discussed. But remember, some of those items on your agenda could be confidential. So you must be very sure not to just make it open for everyone, but the most general ones, the direction that the SGB would take, that is important to keep your component informed. You can also ask the SGB chairperson to come to the school and attend a staff meeting, maybe during a break time, and just inform the educator and the non-educator component on what happened, what transpired at the previous SGB meeting, what is important. Because even the learners will go back, because they will bring items to the SGB meeting, what is important for the learners, isn't that so? So there have to be some way of two-way communication on what happened, is the direction correct, are they doing what the SGB must do? So that's important that communication take place all the time. Yes.
I see a question from Ria. To what extent should the do the SGB take ownership of teacher development and support? So far, I've seen that SGBs are mainly dealing with technical stuff like policy, finance, and so forth. Would the SGB nominate a specific expert?
Well, I think it's important that the SGB, you remember that the principal is ex officio on the SGB. And usually, when you have educator component being elected, some of our schools can also call up, for instance, the deputy principals or people having important roles to play in the school, and they would inform. They are the ears and the eyes for the SGB to tell the SGB, we have to take into consideration this kind of teacher development, or we have to open our eyes for this kind of project because it would be to the best interest of our school. Then remember, it cannot happen out of the blue. If it will take a budget, you have to plan for that. So when you have a specific project, when you think your educators must partake in, they must be budgeted for. So you can't have it like this. Therefore, it's important to get the information through the correct channels from where it's originated through to the SGB, going through all the processes, because a good SGB will look after teacher development. Because you remember we said that they must create that conducive environment in which quality education will take place. You have to look after your educators. They must be happy. They must be informed. There must be continuous education in their ranks to be, actually trained all the time to give the best product through to the learners. So that is possible. Yes.
Just adding on to what you just said, Constanze, if there's a need for teacher development, which of course the teachers will identify, the principal having all this information will take it to the SGB, and it's for him to convince the SGB of this need, and a supporting SGB will of course ensure that the school teachers are developed professionally and support these programs. So for as long as you are able to bring them, and as the question is to whether it is the SGB who should nominate a particular expert, there are processes for appointing who the trainers will be or who will be the providers of a particular developmental program will be, looking into account the budgets, what the school can afford, what the SGB can afford. So this shall be, you will be having committees, a whole lot of committees who will take care of this, but the SGB has the responsibility to support this professional development of teachers in the best interest of the school.
Yes, and if I may add there, you must also look at your departmental programs. It's quite a few and very good departmental programs that's offered, and you have that's the best place to start. But I mean to enrich your parents and to really your educators, and to equip them, to be ready for every school day. You can add on to that. And therefore also work with your principal, work with your SMT, listen to what they want. They will bring you the message on how you shall go about.
Can you elaborate more on SGB representatives?
We've explained, you have explained that, and just we said that in section 20, but it's actually section 23 of the Schools Act. The membership of a governing body of a public school comprises of the following members: the elected members, and that would be now the parent component, as well as the educator component and the non-educator component. They are all being elected by their specific school community. So parents vote for parents, educators vote for educators, and non-educators vote for non-educators. Then we also have the co-opted members, and in a secondary school we also have the learners, and the principal is ex officio on the SGB. Those are the composition of the SGB. That would be the representatives on the SGB. Thank you.
Jump
I
in.
see here's another question from Delphine Bartlett saying that if an SGB member served a term and a half, are they eligible to serve another term? Well, if that is a parent member, of course, they must have a child in the school. Then they would be eligible to serve another term. If it's anybody must be related to a school to stand for the SGB. There's no limit on how many terms you may stand. Where there is a limit is, for instance, that the specific ambte, what you call that in English, George? The chairperson, the treasurer, and the secretary, they must be elected. Yeah, they must be elected every year. They cannot roll on to another term. So they can stand, they must be elected on the SGB, and then each year the law is prescribing they must be elected into that specific position. That's important.
We are dealing with the rightful or legal parent during voter roll viewing and updating.
Yeah.
When they see that they are not on the voters roll and need to be added.
Yeah, I think we've answered that one.
You answered that one to say the school will have to be ready with its computers. If we know that we made a mistake, we need to add it up. As long as this is a parent with a learner with a child in a school.
Yeah. I see there's another one. Is the parent who doesn't have legal guardianship allowed to be in the SGB, not even registered, even on the voters roll? Well, we said that in the beginning, and we have said it just now again. For you to be able to vote at your school, you have to be on the voters roll. And we've explained, we have a difficult situation in South Africa where sometimes the real biological parent is not taking care of the child. But the person being registered at the school on the system, that person is supposed to be a voting person. So you can't have 4 people coming forward and say we vote for this one child. There can only be 2. And that must be sorted out beforehand. So if that person is not even registered on the voters roll, I think it would be very difficult for that person to come and demand to have a vote.
It says, can learners be co-opted if not in a high school?
No.
In a special school, what is the criteria or age?
No, learners cannot be co-opted as such. They must be elected by the learner council to serve in a high school on the SGB. In a LSN school, it will be, well, they can also be elected by their structure to serve there if if it makes provision for learners until grade 12, it's possible. And you can co-opt people on the LSN. Of course, I think we've seen what we've put forward on the slide. That's quite a different ball game to find the right people to serve on the LSN schools SGBs. Yes.
Can a person occupy the same position for 4 terms?
Oh, yes. Well, you can if you are being voted in each year in that specific position. It's possible. I've known chairperson serving forever on SGBs, but they must be elected each year by the full SGB in that specific position. So it's not an automatic roll-on. You have to be elected in the beginning of the year for that specific position. That is what the Schools Act is requiring.
Yeah, the Schools Act says that you serve for 12 months in a position.
Yes.
And at the beginning of the year, the principal chairs the meeting for the election of a chairperson, and then the chairperson then takes over.
Yes. Okay. The email is mine is Constanze, CONSTANZE @fetsas.org.za. And George, you can give yours.
Mine is george@fetsas.org.za.
Our next offering from the School Leadership Forum, and we're extremely grateful to my school and Woolworths for sponsoring our programs. It will be on the 11th of April at the same time, 3 o'clock till 4:30. It will also be a virtual session, and it will be presented by our speaker, Dr. Hannah Barnes, and she's from Bush Maths, and she will do counting made easy for grade R to grade 3.